Hey ladies, Christy here, and I just want to go over some color match training with you. I do not have all the answers. I am not a professional by any means, but here are some tidbits that I've learned along the way, and I'm happy to share those with you. So to get started, please know that the color match thread is a great resource for you. Please follow along in there. If it's your selfie that you're submitting, please take a guess to go along with it. That's the best way to learn. Use the arm swatches. The absolute best way to learn is to get this on people's faces, as many as you can, even if it's your brother, your dad, even if it's a man. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to get a feel for color tones. So, for example, here's my mane. You can't hardly see it. It blends right in to my skin. So that's how I know if that's a good match. So if I'm doing it in person, I'll take all of my highlights with me. I have it in a different compact. And then I get a look at that, get a feel, if you're looking at that arm swatch, do I think they're going to be on the left side or the right side? Are they really fair? Are they medium or are they darker? And that helps me narrow it down. And then I usually try like 3 different ones, and I'll take a Q-tip and apply it along there. So for example, obviously that's not my shade, right? It stands out a lot. Here's another one so you can get a feel. And then, so of those 3, I'm going to add that to their jawline. Make sure you blend it in a little bit, because obviously you're not going to put it on and leave it like that. So this one blended in, that one did, and that one is too light. So of those 2, one was Sandy, one was Tan Lines, which is one of our bronzers. For me, Tan Lines works best. That was the middle one that I put on. But as you saw, Sandy blended in too. So there's not always one exact answer. Oftentimes, people can wear more than one. So please don't get in the mindset that you have to get it exactly right. As I'll share coming up, I'll share pictures of girls wearing 4 different shades, and there's probably 1 or 2 that look better than others. But again, there's not always one exact perfect match per person. So don't feel like you have to get the exact answer, especially when you're doing it virtually. It's difficult. That being said, really super important to get a good selfie, and really super important that you spell it out for your customer, and they will still do it wrong, as you've probably already experienced. So you just have to communicate that back and forth. If they send you a picture and the window's behind them, don't submit that to the color match thread. Instead, go back to the person and say, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sending me your selfie. However, for me to do it the best way virtually, I need for you to face that window that's behind you. Take a step or 2 back. Make sure I can see your neck. There's no shadowing, because these are the details I need in order to really nail your virtual match. And I'm not afraid to go back and ask that 2 or 3 times. You can tell when they're getting annoyed, like you can almost hear them rolling their eyes at you. However, if they want to get a good virtual match, they're going to follow along and do what you're asking them to do, or they run the risk of not getting a good match. That's as simple as I know how to make it. So please make sure that you are spelling it out for them and getting a really good match, going back to them, asking them to do it differently, asking them to try different windows if need be, because that's what we need in order to do this virtually. Also, it's really helpful if you have a makeup picture of them also, because sometimes we're between 2 shades. One might be more neutral, one might be warmer, and they really could go either way. So it's really helpful to have a picture of them with makeup on, even if you snag it off of Facebook, or I usually just ask them, do you have any pictures of you on your phone, even if other people are in it, a picture of you with makeup on, just so I can get a feel for how you wear it. And that's helpful. It also helps you know what kind of lip and cheek color to recommend, and get a feel for if they're more glam, more natural. If they're doing stuff with their eyes, then you should make eyeshadow recommendations. So the more resources you have to pull from when we're making that initial color match, the better. So next I'm going to share some slides with you of before and afters, so you can see what their skin looks like before, and then it'll say on the bottom what the shade is that they used, so that you can see what it looks like on. Again, you're going to see some faces that on the before, it's like, well, it looks like they could do amber or sandy, or maybe they could even pull off mango. Again, there's not always one right answer, so don't beat yourself up if you see several colors, and don't feel like you have to nail one specific shade for this person. This is the arm swatch that I was referring to. You'll see on the left-hand side, it's the lighter colors, more fair. And then when you get down to June and Candlelit, Wheat, those are more medium, along with Amber. And then Sandy and down is more darker tones. This isn't, if you put this right beside a face, it's not going to be 100% correct, but it's pretty close, and it's definitely a starting point that you can use whenever you're beginning to try to narrow down which shade they might be. So we'll try to go in order here, starting with Linen and Moonlit. Linen is very fair, has a little bit more of a yellow undertone, which you can see in her chin more than anywhere else. More commonly only recommending this as a brightener, not very often as a main. Same with Moonlit, they have to be really fair for this. Some people are though, we do recommend it at times. Moonlit is a little more pink and peach than Linen, which is more yellow. And then we also have a new one called Versailles, which is even more pink undertone, but I don't have anyone with that on. That highlight is fairly new, and it's great for an under eye brightener. Next up is White Peach. This and Aura are almost interchangeable, except White Peach, as you can see in this, is a little more pink, peachy, and they are definitely very fair, just a little bit darker than Moonlit or Linen. Next is Aura, and as I said, this has a little bit more of a yellow undertone, where White Peach had more of a peachy pink undertone. Still very fair. And then as you'll see in the next picture, since it does have that yellow undertone, if you look at her after, look how yellow her face, especially her chin, is, and it doesn't really compare to the pinkness in her chest. So I think I would have gone more Candlelit in this case. I just wanted to show you an example of how Aura can definitely pull more yellow if there aren't yellow undertones that they already have. So a lot of times those lighter shades that we just went over are actually used for their accent or brightening color instead of their main, if they are medium or darker skin toned. Sunlit we don't use as a main very often. It's very yellow based, but it is a beautiful under eye brightener, especially if they have purple, because the yellow cancels that. We've also mentioned you don't want to go too bright if they have any under eye textures or fine lines and wrinkles, because you don't want to bring more focus to that area and draw more attention to it. So if that's the case, you probably only want to go one shade lighter and not 2 or 3 shades lighter to brighten. So next up is June. It's medium skin tone, and it is great at correcting redness because it has a yellow undertone, which is opposite on the color wheel. This gal looks beautiful with it on. It corrected her redness, but also matches her chin and neck. Next, I just wanted to demonstrate when there's a yellow glow like that on their neck, usually that's an indicator for June. Not all the time, but often. And it also helps control those blemishes that she has. You can spot treat for that. This girl has used June all over for her mane and her brightener just to tone down that red, but it does match her neck and chest too. So it's not always for the sole purpose of neutralizing red. It's also for olive skin tone when you're not as dark as Sandy, but look how beautiful it is on this girl. And then next is just to show 2 examples. Oftentimes you can get away with both. So June brightens her more, Amber somewhat matches her more. It's more of a preference. That's why it's really important and helpful to see a makeup picture of them too, to see if they prefer a brighter shade or a warmer shade. And then the next picture is an example of when June just doesn't work. It's too yellow on her on the right. Amber matches her chest and her neck much better because it warms her up and it all blends. Whereas on the left-hand side, it's just an obvious different color on her face than it is on the pink and redness of her neck and chin or chest. Another example of how not to use it. She has color corrected that redness on the right-hand side, but it's too yellow. She maybe would just correct in the areas of redness and then maybe do amber or a bronzer to pull it all together. Another example, mature skin ladies do not do well with June because it pulls more green on them, and it also just washes them out. She should have gone with a warmer, darker shade. Looking at this, I would say Sandy probably would have been her best bet. June just doesn't do her any favors. Next up is Candlelit, or Candy, as we call it often. This is our top seller of all highlight shades. So obviously we have a lot of medium to fair white girls. This is a classic example. See all the pink right in her cheeks and around her face. She has a pink undertone, same as the next girl underneath those freckles. When they are light to medium and there's a lot of pinkiness like that, Candlelit is usually a sure bet. Often when they have freckles, you need to look underneath those because sometimes those freckles warm them up, but this girl is a prime candidate for Candlelit, or Candy as we call it. Next up we have Wheat. You might want to screenshot this arm swatch because it's a little bit better representation. The other one, it's a little more orange. The first example, she's more olive. I don't think originally I would have chosen Wheat for her, but it just goes to show its versatility. It's definitely more of a golden hue, which you'll see here in our girl Keisha, how beautiful this is. It adds that glow. It has more golden to it. It's like a lighter mango. It's a beautiful brightener when paired with Goddess. A lot of times people wear amber as their brightener if they're using Wheat as their main. We're moving on to Amber here, which is more medium skin tone, the right-hand side of the arm swatch. This is for someone who's warm, a little bit lighter than Sandy, not as neutral, or olive as Amber, as Sandy. And you'll see in this picture, it covers redness really well. Amber is really good for Asian skin. Sometimes Mango in as well because of the warmth, and sometimes June. And here's just another example of how beautiful Amber is on. It's very versatile. You'll notice that many girls can wear this shade. And just a quick example of when not to wear Amber. She's too dark for it. If you'll notice, her face is a different color than her chest. Her chest is more peachy. Mango would have been a better fit for her. So just make sure the face and chest match. Perfect example of Sandy. She is olive and neutral. This is exactly who I mean when I say olive and neutral. Like, she is the epitome of Sandy. Beautiful dark skin. Here's another example, just neutral. Beautiful shade. And then next up you'll see it is really good for melasma or hyperpigmentation. It just covers that well, as you can see in the before and after. It is great for mature skin, a common match for mature skin. You want to shade up as Sandy paired with Candlelit, and as you can see, it really covers her age spots and her sunspots well. They have to be the right shade, of course, but it is a common pairing for mature skin. So if anyone is medium to darker skin tone and have even a little bit of warmth, you'll need to go Mango, or because if you use Sandy, it'll pull too yellow. So this is a nice example here of a little bit darker than Sandy, a little peachy, same as this one. June is a common pairing to use as a brightening accent because it'll also help neutralize if Mango is too warm or too orange. Also, if there's redness, Mango and June are a great pairing. So we do have Tan Lines, which is a bronzer, but it's actually been proven to be a really nice main shade if somebody is darker than Sandy but not as dark as Goddess. It's not as warm as Goddess, but it's not as neutral as Sandy. And in this next picture, you'll see me wearing Tan Lines for my main. Another good reason why it's good to see a makeup picture, I like to wear it a little darker. So if you look at my before, I could probably pull off Sandy, but I love the warmth of Tan Lines and it's a perfect fit for me. So just to go back to that arm swatch quickly, Goddess is definitely the warmest. It is Sandy, then Mango, then Goddess. And this next picture is a pretty perfect representation of Goddess. Very warm, a little more golden. And she has this paired with Wheat as her brightener, which is beautiful. Usually use Indigo Contour to sculpt out those cheekbones and to match that dark hair and dark brows. But in the next picture, you'll see sometimes you don't have to be that warm or golden. If you're darker than Sandy, sometimes you need a shade like Goddess. But as you blend it in, you'll see that it doesn't always pull so warm or orange. And you can pair it with a neutral shade. Same for her. It covers her age spots and sunspots beautifully, but it's not nearly as warm or as golden or orange as you would think. And if you do recommend this, you could also pair it with something like June or Sandy as a brightener, and that can help neutralize or tone down any warmth or orange that they might have. The ones coming up, I personally don't get too many color matches for, but still wanted to include them. Papaya, Icon, Cinnamon, Mirage, and Muse. I would direct you to other resources if you needed a match for this, just to make sure that we are doing a good job and getting any women of color the right match that they might need. Oh, we made it. All that being said, please don't put too much pressure on yourself. I want to give 2 examples of how women can pull off many shades. Take a look. Same girl wearing 4 different shades. I'm sure there is one best fit for her, but look at her. She looks gorgeous in all 4 colors. So you don't necessarily have to nail one exact color. And again, she's wearing 6 different shades and she looks beautiful in all of them. Just want to show you that example so you don't put too much pressure on yourself to really have to nail it to just one perfect match. You might want to screenshot this. This is some common pairings for main highlight with brightening highlight, as dubbed by the famous Kat Fairchild. You want to look at the lightest part of their face also to try to pick that brightening highlight. Although keep in mind, if they have mature skin or texture, fine lines and wrinkles underneath their eyes, you don't want to go too light. Typically you can go 1, 2, even 3 shades lighter, but if they have texture or wrinkles under there, you don't want to bring more attention to that area, and you might only want to go 1 shade lighter. But take a look, screenshot this. These are common pairings, although a lot of times I would say we do Candlelit paired with Moonlit, not necessarily Linen, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. And often we do Sandy and Candlelit together. Mango, as this says, we often pair with June, especially if you need to cut some redness or if mango is too warm. Sunlit is also a beautiful shade. It's definitely more yellow based, but does a great job at bringing that light bulb glow in the center. And it is really good to neutralize any purple or under eye darkness. You'll notice a lot of our creams are yellow based, and that's just to give that glow, that youthful skin that Kara has created for us to have. Moving on to contours, I will admit these were harder for me and took the longest for me to catch on to than even matching main highlights and brightening shades. So let's just start at the top and work our way down. Aspen, I have never recommended as a contour to use to add dimension, but more so because it has that green undertone. It is perfect for neutralizing redness, especially if they try main highlight and that doesn't cut it, then we often recommend Aspen to take care of that redness, and it does a beautiful job. Next up is Walnut. This is for the fairest of fair, so this would be for Moonlit or Linen, and if you use it any other time for anybody darker than that, it's not going to show up at all. Ash is a cooler one. It is great, especially if they have gray brows. It's not for too dark of skin. It's mostly for lighter shades, but I've used it for as dark as Sandy, and it still shows even on that. Next up is Olive. I would say this is a pretty universal and safe one. It's great for if they have brown hair. It's great to fill their brows with this. It's a warmer one, so a lot of times we'll say, use this because it'll help warm them up, but it is great also for as dark as Sandy, maybe Mango. Stone is really good if they're a redhead, but if they are amber or darker, it's not going to show up, but it's great to fill brows. Astoria is more so if they have dark brows and dark hair. It's cooler though, so if they're too warm, this is going to show up more ashy and even muddy or earthy looking, so you might need to drop down to Indigo to make it a little warmer. But it's great for, I'd say, from Candlelit on. Henna is great for more fair-skinned, and especially if they're blonde or have those really light eyelashes and brows that you can hardly see. It's great to fill those brows in. It is cooler, so you don't want to use this on somebody that's warm, and definitely nobody darker than, I would say, amber at the darkest. Shadow we hardly ever use. It's definitely more earthy. It appears as a shadow, but it is great for nose contouring and for filling brows. Indigo is beautiful even on the lightest people, especially if they have a little bit of expertise in contouring already. I use it, and for Sandy, Goddess, Mango, definitely use it on them. They could probably pull off Astoria or Sandy as well, but just don't let it scare you. You can use it even on lighter shades. It's definitely warmer. It's similar to Stone, but darker. It has a reddish tint to it for sure. Cola is for darker, probably even from like Mirage, Icon, Muse. Anything lighter than that would probably use Indigo, unless you need it to fill dark brown brows or black brows. As you can tell from hearing me talk, a lot of times we oftentimes match both their contour, not just to use as a contour, but also to match their brows and hair as well, because we love that this makeup is so versatile, and the less products they have, the better it is. And, you know, our motto is to keep things simple, so it definitely helps in that regards. Many people can pull off more than one shade of contour, and sometimes it depends on if they want it more subtle or more dramatic. Like I said, this one contouring takes a little bit longer to match, and many people can pull off more than one shade, so don't put too much pressure on yourself to nail this from the very beginning. Rely on that color match thread and on your upline. Don't sweat it. Now this next graphic shows warm tones and cool tones. You can screenshot this. Don't get too hung up on it. You're going to get a feel just by looking. Don't go by the veins and all that stuff. Just stick to looking at faces and getting it right, becoming familiar with it. The key is in the selfie. Don't be afraid to ask for more. Be very specific with your directions. It could make or break the color match based on the quality of the image that we get. So don't be afraid to be picky and ask for more. And remember, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. We have a return policy. You don't have to nail it the first time. Oftentimes, though, they can wear more than one shade and it'll work. And if worse comes to worse, I mean, my gosh, girls, we're going to have our ladies looking better than this anyway, right? So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Rely on your upline, rely on the color match thread, and get it on as many faces as you can. And deep breath. You're not going to nail it in one day, but you'll get there, I promise. If they get their makeup and put it on and end up looking like this, please don't tell them that you did color match training with me. Tell them you learned it somewhere else. Thanks for listening, girls. Hope you learned.